The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
The North Kesteven series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Welcome back to North Kesteven again, everybody, for the penultimate time. In fact, the last episode's coming your way tomorrow. Now, in this one, it's kind of a poignant moment for me because by visiting it, we've now covered everything that touches the city of Lincoln. Well, almost. We've got to walk around it yet. This is going to be a long, long walk because there's plenty to see here in North Hykeham. North Hykeham, Hicker's Homestead, North. We've got just 2 to go in North Kesteven and they're both towns. This weekend we'll finish the district in style as we journey around them both. First up we have the one and only parish that remains, which shares a border with the city of Lincoln. A lot of people mistake this one for being part of the city, given the urban nature of it these days, but North Hykeham is very much its own thing, independent from Lincoln. Defined as an industrial town, it's located directly south of the city, where it forms the southern part of the wider Lincoln urban area, along with the likes of Waddington, Bracebridge Heath and Cannock, as well as South Hykeham too. With a population well in excess of 16,000, North Hykeham is the second largest in North Kesteven and far, far bigger than its namesake neighbour. This one has 2 distinct areas, namely the Old Village in the south, which is based around a crossroads, and a much newer northern area that lines Newark Road. The Old Village dates back to a time when the Angles were around, Germanic invaders who occupied much of Britain after the Romans left in 400 AD. It features the church, a couple of pubs and a small shopping area. The newer area has a shopping centre of its own called the Forum, which acts as the main go-to place for a lot of local retailers. Between the two, North Hykeham has more than enough to look after itself. The place also has 2 secondary schools, 4 pubs, an array of parks and lots of communal venues. So, for the penultimate time in North Kesteven, let's turn on the Strava, get our walking boots on and see what lies ahead of us. Originally, North Hykeham was a small village with a church. It's a bit different now. The area saw significant residential growth, particularly in the post-medieval period and later with the expansion of Lincoln. Since 1988, North Hykeham has been twinned with the German town Denzlingen, just north of Freiburg. That has a slightly smaller population though, at around 13,500. Aside from Sleaford, North Hykeham is now the only other town in the district of North Kesteven. Although vastly populous, it can be defined as industrial. The north of the parish is dominated by a huge industrial estate that lies between Lincoln's Doddington Road and the local railway station. There are engineering companies, manufacturers and well-known names like Siemens, which was formerly Alstom Power. The estate has a company called ASC Metals who make metal sheets and tubes, and on Station Road the Lindum Group have a site which houses several small businesses. Without a doubt, there's one piece of industrial history that needs to be talked about more than any other here in North Hykeham. It once had a foundry. Latterly known as Lincoln Castings, it stood on Station Road and was worked until February 2007. Its last owners were the Mead Corporation of Malmesbury. Lincoln Castings began its life as Lee's Malleable Foundry and was a major local employer from 1938 to 1981, when it was taken over by George Fisher of Switzerland. In 1986, 350 people worked there, 290 on the shop floor and 60 as supervisors and in the offices. George Fisher made castings for motors, both non-ferrous and ferrous. For ferrous castings, they used scrap metal, limestone and carbon. For non-ferrous castings, they used aluminium. In 2003, Mead acquired the site and renamed the foundry Lincoln Castings. Formerly a jam factory, Harrisons, who were iron makers on the Brayford in Lincoln, amalgamated the site into their business in the early 20th century. So this is the site of Lincoln Castings now. It's a big housing estate, but some of the streets around here do remember its former use. Today, the site of Lincoln Castings has been replaced by a brand new housing estate. These streets all feature names that relate to the foundry, preserving the history of it. The names include things like Crucible Close, Forge Way, Ferris Way, Furnace Close and Cupola Close. Let's head north now, briefly back towards the industrial estate as we get this walk underway. Our first stop is Hykeham railway station, not far from the former castings site. Hykeham station is the last one to cover on the Nottingham to Lincoln line, which we've seen countless times before. It's owned by Network Rail and managed by East Midlands Railway, which provide all the services. Hykeham has been here since 1846, opening along with the line. Train services initially ran from Nottingham to Lincoln St Mark's, although these days they end up at Lincoln Central since St Mark's Station has long gone. The station has two platforms which are staggered over a level crossing. Hykeham is not a major station and it features just a few basic facilities. It's generally served by an hourly service southbound to Leicester via Nottingham and northbound to Lincoln. Fun fact, you can actually reach London from here if you get on the right train. Okay, let's get walking properly now, because so far we've just seen a station and an industrial estate and the site of Lincoln Castings, which is the tip of a very large iceberg, because North Hykeham is quite the town, trust me. Let's turn the camera around here at the station. I'll show you where we're about to go. We're heading down this road, and in a moment we're going to turn to the right and head for some lakes. Now, as we already know from our wanderings in Thorpe-on-the-Hill several moons ago now, the western side of Lincoln used to be important for its sand and gravel workings. We've met a few lakes before now which have been formed from the old gravel pits, and North Hykeham has some of its own. Using a short footpath, we find ourselves on the edge of one of them here. This is one of the Millennium lakes that occupy the parish's northwestern regions. There's no gravel left to work now. Instead, these lakes are used for leisure purposes. They're used primarily by North Hykeham Sailing Club, which has various competitions and boating days. The lake they use the most is Apex Lake, which is so well hidden that many Hykeham residents don't even know it's there. The club was formed in 1985, but dinghy sailing took place on the lake long before then. It's not clear when sailing started in the Lincoln area actually. The large engineering company, Rustons, just over the Lincoln border, had an active sports club, and part of it was a sailing club, originally located on the River Trent at Torksey Lock. The other sailing group in the area was a section of the Lincoln Boat Club, which was formed in March 1958, and that used the Brayford Pool in Lincoln itself. That was not an ideal location though for dinghy racing. In 1959, a small group of dinghy sailors got together and made an approach to the former Hartsholme Gravel and Sand Company to ask whether there was a gravel pit they could use instead. Indeed there was, Apex Lake. Later that year, the Lindum Sailing Club, or LSC, was formed with a fleet of about 30 boats and the aim to promote the sport of dinghy racing. Rustons also used Apex Lake, access to which was along a very long and rough track from Crow Park Farm, and there were no facilities or buildings on the site. Knowing this, Ruston suggested that the two clubs should merge and LSC should use their facilities. However, there was a sporting rivalry between the two. Both clubs continued their activities, which were mainly dinghy racing and training in their respective parts of the lake, and both clubs produced sailors who became national champions. The old Ruston site was later abandoned and became near derelict until the mid-1990s, when the Hykeham Scout Group were looking for a site for their headquarters. Today it's an activity centre for the Scouts for their water sport activities. Every 4th year they host the Lincolnshire Poacher Jamboree. Now, North Hykeham has 5 parks, and the first of them on this route is the one behind the Memorial Hall on Newark Road. This park forms part of the Memorial Hall sporting facilities. A couple of sports teams use this one, including the North Hykeham Rugby Union Club and the Lincolnshire Bombers, who are a British-American football team. Let's take a look at the hall itself. The Memorial Hall was built in 1969, replacing a former communal venue that dated from the 1940s, known as the Tin Tabernacle. This used to be where the town council met until 2006, but now they have an even newer premises on Fen Lane. The council have been looking after North Hykeham since 1894. And of course, given this is the Memorial Hall, there's also a big war memorial here. You can see it just outside the front door. Here we go. So we've got a big stone in the middle that says "Lest we forget," and then we've got a series of tablets on either side. We've got one for World War I there, and World War II the other side, and other conflicts here on this end here. And this one tells us about a Hampton bomber crash at North Hykeham, where these 4 guys lost their lives in 1942. And speaking of crashes, the 4th and final tablet here is also to do with a crash. This happened in 1941 when a Manchester bomber crashed at South Hykeham, and these guys died in that one. North Hykeham has 4 pubs. They are the Fox and Hounds, the Harrows, the Centurion and the Lincoln Green, and if I've done this route right, that's the order we will see them in. So first up we have the Fox and Hounds on Newark Road. This is a popular pub because of its location. From here you can see the lakes that we've just walked around. As you can imagine, therefore, there was quite a commotion when this was forced to close for a while in 2022, although the closure didn't last too long, thankfully. North Hykeham's locals see this one as their main go-to pub, but that's not to say the others are bad. Let's continue down Newark Road. In addition to the pubs, North Hykeham has a microbrewery. A little further down Newark Road is Poachers. Opened in 2001, Poachers was originally situated on the former site of RAF Swindeby. Today, the brewery operates from a converted barn at the rear of this house here in North Hykeham. The brewery is owned and operated by George Batterby, a former RAF man for 25 years. He spent his first tour at RAF Swindeby, which lasted for 5 years. All the beers brewed by Poachers are available in bottle-conditioned form. Visitors are welcome to view the brewery, subject to prior arrangements. Now we're in the housing estate that sits to the south of Newark Road, close to that brewery. Around here, all the roads have Roman names, and that makes sense. You see, the Romans will definitely have known this area because Newark Road formed part of a Roman road, the Foss Way. That's why it's dead straight. Caesar, Brutus, Nero, Taurus, Romulus and Remus are among the many Romans represented in this clutch of housing. Let's make our way through it to a small playground. Well, who knew there were so many Roman names? There were ones there walking through that estate that I've heard of before, but you don't often see them in street names. You tend to get the biggest ones like the Julius Caesars and the Maximuses and the Brutuses and stuff like that, but not everything you see on this estate. I think they've gone for every single Roman emperor going. Now the Roman theme will continue here because North Hykeham is of course close to the Foss Way, and therefore there's a lot of Roman history around it. For the time being though, we're going to leave that to one side, because next we're heading into this little playground briefly, and then we're heading for a school. So here we are at the playground, although this one doesn't have a name as far as I can tell. It sits just to the north of our first primary school. North Hykeham is well served when it comes to education. There are several primary schools here, including All Saints CofE, Foss Way Academy, Lingmore Primary and Manor Farm Academy. This one is Manor Farm and it sits on Tiber Road. This is the newest of the schools in North Hykeham, but there's a good reason for that. As the town has expanded over the course of the last few decades, more and more housing has been built on its fringes. Manor Farm Academy was built to deal with the influx of new residents. Despite the Roman names, this whole estate is known as Manor Farm, reflecting the area's manorial history. It was the last of a 6-phase plan to increase the housing stock in North Hykeham. All the houses and facilities around here were provided by Barrett and David Wilson Homes. It was all built between 2010 and 2020. After passing through Mill Park, we're now heading towards some shops. We're about to reach the southernmost point of this route. This row of shops was built along with the Manor Farm estate in the early 2010s. It features a fish and chip shop, a co-op and a hair salon called Kerrigan's. Well, so far it's all very new, isn't it? We haven't seen much in the way of old just yet. That's because we haven't yet hit the centre of North Hykeham. The centre of North Hykeham used to be obviously the main village. It's just expanded outwards ever since it was first established, and the rest of it was all fields with, you know, nothing really much to talk about on them. There were some windmills though here. There were two of them in fact, and I'm going to go and show you now where one of them used to be. Now, North Hykeham's town crest features two windmills. They reference the two windmills that once stood in the village before it became a town. One of them was called Lads Mill, and it used to stand on Mill Lane. That's this road here. Long since demolished, the town crest helps to remember it, but so too does Lads Mill Close off Hebden Moor Way. There were two windmills because there were two manors, and each manor had its own mill. In the 12th century, one manor was given to the King of France and the other to Christ College, Cambridge. Although they're represented as identical on the coat of arms, the mills were very different in appearance, one being brick-built and the other predominantly wooden in construction. Lads Mill was the brick one, and by 1977 it was just a stump because its height had been reduced to just above the original doorway. Today, that stump serves as a garden outhouse. The other windmill was on Hykeham Moor alongside Newark Road and not far from the Fox and Hounds. It was mainly a wooden superstructure on a brick-built base. It was already in a state of disrepair in the 1930s, with the roof having caved in and two of the four sails missing. Millstones from both mills are preserved at the front of the Memorial Hall. Did you spot them while we were there? We're coming into the old village centre now via Mill Lane, and we pass by North Hykeham Community Fire Station next on the way. I didn't find a lot about this one, so let's go to the church. Now, as churches go in North Hykeham, there's a bit of a backstory here. Very early records from 1160 mention a church here, but not a lot is known about that one. By 1535 it was a free chapel, and by 1700 it had fallen into ruin. Between 1700 and 1868 there was no church in North Hykeham. Worshippers had to, therefore, make a special trip from North Hykeham to South Hykeham just to get to church. That all changed in 1868 with the construction of All Saints Church in the village centre, built at a cost of £1,200. This does not stand on the site of the older, ruinous church. That was on, or close to, Meadow Lane, and nothing remains of it now. All Saints consists of a nave, a south aisle, a chancel and a tower. Along with South Hykeham's church, both this and North Hykeham Methodist Chapel are part of the Hykeham Team Ministry. There are at least two other churches here. In January 2014, a new one opened at one of the town's two secondary schools, entitled Alive Hykeham. There's also St Hugh's Church, which we'll see later. Okay, and seeing as we're standing right outside the church, that means we are in the town / old village centre. I don't think you can really call this a town centre, to be honest with you. It doesn't look anything like a traditional town centre here in the United Kingdom, but there we go. I prefer to call this an old village centre. So here it is, based around this crossroads, and the next thing to talk about is this building on the left hand side. That is a pub called the Harrows. The centre of North Hykeham can be defined by a crossroads upon which stands the second pub. This is the Harrows Inn, which dates back to the late 17th century. Despite that, the earliest it was ever recorded on a map was in 1841. Originally called the Harrow Inn, singular, not plural, it's seen some things in its time. I say that because this hasn't always been just a pub, according to local legend. The bar area was once a mortuary, apparently. In the early 19th century, when North Hykeham had no church, both Methodist and Anglican services were held in a room adjoining the Harrows Inn. Speaking of Methodism, that's next. As far as Methodism goes, North Hykeham has had a chapel since at least 1838. According to records, that's when the first Wesleyan chapel was built on Cross Lane. It was replaced by this building on Chapel Lane, which bears a stone plaque which is engraved Wesleyan Chapel 1881. The old chapel on Cross Lane, which also included a Sunday school, still stands. Today it's in use as a house. Middle Street next, which is where we find a local youth centre. It's commonly known as NHYC Reload, and it opens every Wednesday for those aged 8 to 18. To get back to the old village centre, we have to use the impressive Hykeham Green, by far the best open space the place has to offer. This is part of the old village green, which was here centuries before all the urban development that's taken place in more recent times. Running through it is a small watercourse, which is actually a drain. It's not a river or a stream. It's been artificially rerouted in places elsewhere in North Hykeham to accommodate new development. Take note, by the way, of the school you can see from the green. That's Park School Day Nursery, and it occupies North Hykeham's first known school. It's gained a few more since then. Just taking shelter under the trees here on the green because the sun is now starting to get up. It's about 7:45 now this morning. I started at 6. And that tells you how long we've been going. We've almost been going 2 hours here. This is how big North Hykeham is. Now, we're not quite finished with the green because there is one other landmark that's on the edge of it that I do want to talk about, and that would be this building right here, because that used to be a pub. On the corner of the green, there's an old pub which used to be called the Plough. At one time, the Plough and the Harrows Inn were the only two pubs in North Hykeham. They stood either end of the green, with the Pinfold being located near the Harrows and the school and the smithy flanking the Plough. The Plough first appeared on OS maps in 1889, but only the western part of the building existed back then. It's since been extended a bit. No longer a pub, the Plough is instead Amelia Alice Interiors, which is a tea room, but they also offer a huge selection of designer and contemporary lighting for all areas of your home or business. The centre of North Hykeham has a neat little collection of shops and facilities, including a co-op store, a bakery, a cafe and a medical practice. It's been this way here for years, even though the shops have changed a few times. The locals know this as the Hykeham Green Shopping Centre, and it's pretty cool. Okay, next we have the Ark. This is a community facility that includes a charity shop. Originally, it was the church hall. It has a piece of wartime history as well. It was used as a schoolroom for evacuee children and staff from Hull and Leeds at the start of World War II. They were temporarily accommodated here before being integrated into regular classes. Next door to it these days is a more modern structure. Opened in 1999, this is the Ark's newer building, designed to replace the old one. The original Ark, though, is still here, and the newer building is more like an extension, if truth be told. Now, the Ark is by far not the only communal venue here in North Hykeham. There's one that's just across the road. So if you cross the road, you've got a Chinese called Golden Dragon, and you've got a flower shop, Flowers by Suzanne. And then to the left of that, there's a bus stop and a little drive. And this takes you down to Hykeham Social Club. And this has got a little story to tell. Now, speaking of things war-related, this next building also has ties to World War II. This is the Hykeham Social Club, or HSC for short, at 135 Moor Lane. The club originated during World War II when, after parades, some Home Guard members would often go to the Harrows Inn for a drink. What with other commitments, many members couldn't make it, and there was usually little time to spare. That would lead to an application for a small bar of their own. They managed to get one and were able to use the old mill on Mill Lane as their premises, which became the Home Guard headquarters. When the Home Guard was stood down, there were 70 members of the new club, a fair old number. Wanting to keep the old spirit alive, they each contributed to opening a new building, and in 1947 a new club room was built using surplus Ministry of Works standard hutting. It was rebuilt in 1971 on this, the same site, at a cost of £45,000. Since then it's undergone many changes. The last major refurbishment was completed in February 2024. So things are about to get very educational for a bit. North Hykeham, as we know, already has several schools, but so far we've only seen one. Moor Lane has 3, all in close proximity. This is All Saints CofE, a happy, successful and family-orientated school which is linked with the church of the same name at the crossroads. According to the welcome page on their website, this has a wonderful learning environment, including its very own forest school on site. Okay, now we're on Moor Lane, and it's schools that are the theme along here. At the top of this road there's another crossroads, which we'll get to shortly. Before we hit that crossroads though, there are 2 schools, one on either side of the road. One of them's got a link to a video I did not all that long ago, and the other one takes its name from the very district we're in. Moor Lane passes between the town's 2 secondary schools next, which sit pretty much bang opposite each other. First up we have the Sir Robert Pattinson Academy, named after the man we learned about back in Ruskington, in recognition of his membership of the Education Committee. If you haven't seen that episode, it's linked in today's end screen. The Sir Robert Pattinson Academy opened in 1953, originally as Robert Pattinson School. It was built in the grounds of the former Hykeham Hall. It was a bilateral school, meaning it was part grammar and part secondary modern. It held that status until January 1961, when the grammar school students transferred to the newly opened North Kesteven Grammar School. Its first head teacher was Jack Winwood, who served from the school's inauguration until 1960. In 1963, the school gained an outdoor swimming pool and a suite of extra classrooms. It became a full comprehensive in 1970 and a grant-maintained school in 1992. Since 2011, it's been an academy, and that's when the modern name began to be used. Rather unusually, this school has a detachment of the Army Cadet Force based on its site. It was formed by the Nottingham-based East Midlands Reserve Forces. The cadet building was built in 2010 and is used by the regimental band of the Lincolnshire Army Cadet Force. At least 4 famous people have attended this school. They include Nigel Huddleston, the Conservative MP for Mid Worcestershire, and the footballer Paul Mayo. Sophie Wells, born with amniotic band syndrome, is a Paralympic gold medalist who also attended this school. Her 10 medals were won across 4 Paralympic Games from 2012 to 2024. Perhaps the best known former pupil, though, is Lindsay Coulson, the actress who played Carol Jackson in the BBC soap EastEnders. So to the other school, the North Kesteven Academy. This one is more than just a school though. It has the Terry O'Toole Theatre and North Kesteven Sports Centre also within its site. This was founded as North Kesteven Grammar School in 1961 and initially had 600 mixed pupils. It opened on the same day as William Robertson School in Lindum. The first headmaster was that man again, Jack Winwood, who left behind Robert Pattinson School over the road. He didn't go far. The school became a comprehensive school in 1970, at which time it contained 1,200 pupils, double the amount it opened with. Today, the school has approximately 1,400. A new maths building was constructed in 1995 and a sixth form complex opened in 1999, shared as the North Hykeham Joint Sixth Form. The school was designated a specialist arts college in performing arts in the year 2000 and opened a new arts complex 2 years later, including the 250-seat Terry O'Toole Theatre. The possibility of a sports centre on the site was first discussed in 1970 and was built in 1974 by Ashby and Horner of Grimsby. It was opened by Roger Bannister. The Lincoln and District Runners, an amateur running and walking club, meet here every Tuesday at the Sports Centre. Notable former pupils here include the actress Kelly Adams, the actor Jonathan Kerrigan, and the athlete Jennifer Pacey, better known as Enigma in the 2008 reboot of Gladiators. So as well as the academy there's a few other bits and bobs in front of it. We've got a health centre here. We've just passed Simpson's, which is a beauty and tanning salon. And then we've got the health centre, the next building along. And opposite, I'll show you this, there's a laundrette there. We don't see many of them, do we? Most people have got washing machines in their own homes these days, but laundrettes do still exist, you know. They're around. After the schools, there's a second crossroads, but this isn't as important as the first. It's where Moor Lane crosses the Newark Road and has a collection of small businesses. In the 1900s, this area was known as Hykeham Moor. It was a small hamlet that took its title from the vast open landscape around it, which we last mentioned in South Hykeham. At that point, the Fox and Hounds pub was considered to be within Hykeham Moor, but now of course it's been absorbed somewhat by the new estates, which have come along since. There were no shops here at that time. Hykeham Moor had literally just 2 rows of houses, one along Moor Lane and the other along the Fosway or Newark Road. Now, in terms of shopping, the village centre provides North Hykeham with a few bits, as does the Forum, which we'll come to in a bit. The town's main supermarket, however, is a branch of Asda, which opened in 1969 and was then rebuilt on an adjacent site in 1998. That rebuilt store is still here. North Hykeham's Asda stands on a piece of land which formerly held Hykeham Manor, partial ruins of which existed into the early 1980s. The old store was turned into the current car park. Not far from Asda, we have the next pub. This is the Centurion, whose name reflects the rich Roman history of the area. It was built in the late 1960s. Popular with diners and drinkers alike, a warm welcome awaits you here, especially in the colder months when they light the fire. Being located next to Asda, there's no excuse to not use this one if you're the sort of person who likes a pint before or after a shopping trip. It's quite often a busy area of North Hykeham, this, because people come in and out of the Asda car park all the time. And of course this is the main shop here in this town. However, there is another shop which has been built quite recently, which we'll see towards the end of this route. It's been quite controversial actually. We'll discuss that a little bit later. Next we need to pass the Centurion and head this way towards the police station. You might be able to see some police cars just there. That's next. Next to pass is the police station before we turn southwards again, heading into the housing estates. The next thing to see is another primary school, this time Fosway Academy. Fosway Academy is located on Ash Grove. Its name is another reference to the Romans because, of course, the Fosway passes close to it. This school arose from the former Fosway Primary School and became an academy in 2011. This one emphasises sports and cultural experiences for its pupils. Let's move on through this estate. Now we're on Fen Lane, and in a moment we'll see the building where the town council is based these days, since it's moved from the Memorial Hall. Fen Lane has been quite an important little road down the years. Although it's not so much these days, this used to lead to the River Witham before the end of it became a footpath. On the Witham at the end of the road was a jetty used to load and unload coal barges. It's another facet of North Hykem's industrial past. On Fen Lane today is Witham Court, a facility that provides specialist mental health support and inpatient care for older adults. So too the Civic offices, which are over the road. In 1970, North Hykeham Town Council acquired 15 acres of land on Fen Lane for football pitches and a play area. This, the council's current office building, is an extension of a pre-existing pavilion and was established in May 2006. By the end of that year, the council had fully relocated. The park that sits behind the building is known as Fen Lane Playing Field, and we can cross that to get to our next landmark, the third of the 4 pubs. Okay, so behind the Civic offices we've got Witham Fields. As you can see, Witham Fields, big green open space, another of North Hykem's parks. So we're going to cross this, and this will take us towards a pub which is called the Lincoln Green. Now, I didn't find a lot about the Lincoln Green, but the name of the pub is quite important, especially if you were following me around Nottinghamshire. You'll see why in a moment. This is the Lincoln Green, a classic 1950s or 1960s estate pub that's as popular today as it's ever been. Now, I didn't find a lot about this one, but we can talk a bit about that interesting name. Lincoln green is the colour of the dyed woolen cloth which formerly originated in Lincoln itself. It was, after all, a major cloth town during the High Middle Ages. Lincoln's dyers were well known for colouring wool with woad, the flowering plant we learned about back in Newton in the Isle. Woad gave cloth a strong blue shade, but the eponymous Lincoln green colour was achieved by over-dyeing that blue with yellow weld or dyer's broom. This was a common practice across the country. Other colours like Coventry blue and Kendal green were linked to the dyers of different English towns. The colour though was always distinctive no matter where it came from. You knew just by looking at it where the garment in question originated. You have all seen Lincoln green, I can almost guarantee that. The colour was made famous by Robin Hood and his merry men, who often wore Lincoln green clothes. It has been said that Lincoln dyed the best green in England, one of the most pleasing shades of the colour ever created. It was revived in the years prior to World War I when it was adopted as the colour of the full dress uniform of the Lincolnshire Yeomanry, albeit a slightly lighter shade. Behind the pub is Glebe Park. Let's cross this to get to Harewood Crescent, where we'll encounter the last of the churches on this walk. This is St Hugh's Church, way more modern than its Anglican counterpart in the old village centre. It was built in 1969 as part of the growing housing estates in North Hykeham. This one stands on the site of a former chapel of ease dedicated to St Hugh, the Bishop of Lincoln, hence the modern dedication. The most notable thing about this church would be its stained glass windows. They were all transferred from St Paul's Church in Lincoln's Bailgate, which was demolished in 1972. Right, we are almost at the end of this route. I've just gone over the 3-hour mark, which is a bit longer than I anticipated walking around this one, but to be fair, it's been alright. My feet aren't hurting too badly, and the sun is still not quite up as high as it's going to get today. 31 degrees is apparently the high temperature today, so I shall still avoid that. We have 2 or 3 major landmarks left, one of which is the Forum, which is what we're heading for now. Okay, so now we're coming towards the main shopping area in North Hykeham. Most of the local shops in the town are on Newark Road at a purpose-built centre called the Forum. The Forum has been here for quite a while and it's never changed. Built in a classic 1960s and early 1970s style, its brutalist architecture is overwhelmingly in your face. So much so that Nicholas Pevsner wasn't really enamoured with it. It wasn't like him to offer any negative thinking, but here he had nothing good to say about the Forum. He described it as an uninspired attempt to create a town-like atmosphere. He might have been right, because personally I've never seen the Forum as a good thing. That said, this still provides North Hykeham with a focal point, even if it is bland and monotonous. There are almost 30 shop units, with everything from estate agents to a Tesco supermarket. Oh, and by the way, the Forum name is another nod to the Roman connections, and its rectangular layout kind of mimics the plaza once at the centre of the city of Rome. For centuries, the Forum was the centre of day-to-day life in Rome, and I suppose this version of it in North Hykeham does have that same overall feel to it. Just up the road back towards the start there's a Lidl supermarket. This is brand new, having been constructed between 2016 and 2017. It stands on the site of a clutch of former houses and a Cantonese restaurant that was called Ocean. It was part of a regeneration project aiming to enhance the area somewhat. Although it now provides an alternative to Asda, not everybody liked the idea of a new supermarket being built here. It was actually rather controversial. Measuring 3,867 square metres, this is the third Lidl store ever built in the Lincoln area, joining its sister supermarkets on Dixon Street and the Carlton Centre. Objections were of course raised by the locals, but with the creation of 38 new jobs, it's now firmly established itself. Okay, not much left now, literally just a school called Lingmore and the final park, and that will then take us back to the site of Lincoln Castings, where we began just over 3.5 hours ago. We have a couple of landmarks left before we end this walk. Here we've got Lingmore Primary Academy, which is the final school. This used to be Lingmore Primary School before it changed its name a few years ago, reflecting its move to academy status. And lastly, we cross St Aidan's Park, which is behind that school and used to contain an old orchard years ago. Now a well-used open green space, it features a number of pieces of playground equipment, including a slide, a zip wire, a small climbing frame, seesaws and swings. It's the ideal way to wrap up this walk around North Hykeham and bring the Lincoln area to a close. Let's make for the car. There we go, people, we are fully around the route, and just to prove that we are, that shop you saw right at the beginning of this video on a roll is right there, and the train station is just beyond it up there, and the site of Lincoln Castings. That has been North Hykeham, and you know what that means? There's just one left in North Kesteven. Okay then, with North Hykeham in the books, North Kesteven is down to 1. Join me tomorrow for one final fling in the district as we wrap it all up in its largest town. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.